All right, welcome historians. This is Guided Notes 14.1. This is World War II begins. So this is your Guided Notes 14.1. So let's get started. These are your standards for this lesson and also the guided questions for this entire lesson. How do political actions often lead to war, and how does war impact the society and especially the environment? This is something we're going to look at in the lesson and also in the unit. All right. Here is your vocabulary. Make sure that you have this vocabulary done in your guided notes. I do make sure that you have the vocabulary done. I will take off points if it's not complete. So please make sure it is done. All right. Here is your first answer to the first question. What did Hitler believe Germany needed in order to be a great power? This is something we talked about during the interwar period. Once he rose to power, he did want to have a certain amount of land to house or hold the troops, right? Or his nation, his Aryan nation. So he needed more land to support that larger population of the Aryan nation that he wanted to create. Okay, so that's number one. Here is number two. The first two ways that he violated the Treaty of Versailles, which was the treaty that was done in World War I, he began to create this new air force, and then he also established a military draft. However, those things that he did first, as you see here in 1935, that was not condemned by France nor Britain. They allowed it, or Italy, they just allowed it to happen, kind of appeasing him. And this is one of those words, your vocabulary words that you should know, a policy of appeasement. They just allowed him to go forth because they did not want to enter into any conflict or war at this point. He also sends German troops into this area called the Rhineland. And because of that, that is another violation of the Treaty of Versailles. And again, Great Britain did not support the use of force. France was ready to go in and, use force to stop him because he's violating the treaty. But Great Britain did not want that thunder. They did not want to do anything like that because, again, they're not trying to get into conflict or any war. Okay? So this began this policy of appeasement, just appeasing Hitler and allowing him to do these things. Okay, this is 3 and 4. In Italy tried to expand their empire in Ethiopia. When they did invade Ethiopia, France and Britain was like, no, you're not supposed to be doing this. This is wrong. And Mussolini was like, don't tell me what to do. This is my country. Don't tell me what to do with it. And because of that, he was angry with France and Britain, and then he aligned himself with Hitler and having his support. But just to be aware, even though he's aligning himself with Hitler, Mussolini I'm talking about, that doesn't mean that he was fully on board with Hitler's anti-Semitic beliefs, okay? That was something that he was not so much aligned with, but he did value his sense of tradition, as you see here for number 4. He also had a common interest to stop communism from spreading, and that was called the Rome-Berlin Axis. Okay, so that's your answer for number 4. All right, for number 5, the AntiCommunist Pact was a pact made by Germany and Japan now. And they pledged to work together to stop the spread of communism. And of course, as you see here, Italy is going to join later because they all are anti-communist, okay? And they want to stop the spread of communism from happening. All right, this is number 6, Anschluss. Anschluss was one of Hitler's goals. And one of Hitler's goals was to bring Austria under the leadership of Germany because Austria was his homeland, right? And he was convinced that Great Britain and France was going to let him do it anyway because they were not paying attention to him. and, that they were not going to use their military to stop him. So he pursued that goal, and he did that by threatening an invasion. And the Austrian chancellor, he forced the Austrian chancellor to put an Austrian Nazi in charge. And then he issued this referendum. So as you see here, we talked about this in class. This was kind of a rigged situation here because the circle is much bigger for the yes part rather than the no, right? And of course, by that instance, now the Nazi leader, the Austrian Nazi leader, is in charge, and Hitler officially annexes Austria to Germany in 1938. Okay, so that was an annexation as a union with Austria. Somewhat not as violent, but still a threat, right? All right, here's 7 and 8. This is more of an appeasement. So now that he's able to get Austria, he's like, well, why not get the others, right? So he demands that he be given the Sudetenland, which is an area in northwestern Czechoslovakia that was inhabited by a lot of Germans. He demands that he should have it. Now, Britain and France are paying a little bit more attention. They're like, okay, he's taking this a little far now. Let's see what we can do in order to, meet his demands and try to keep him quiet, right? Okay. So they meet in the Munich conference, and they did not object to much of Hitler's plans. As a matter of fact, they kind of allowed or agreed for him to do all of his plans except for a few, right? So as you see here, virtually all of his demands were met. And now this is the high point of just appeasing Hitler and allowing him to have the demands that he wants, right? That's, of course, as you're going to see, is going to come at a consequence. So that's your 7 and 8, right? All right, here's number 9. So Chamberlain, which was the prime minister at the time of Great Britain, returns back from the Munich conference and saying, hey, I was able to avoid war. We have peace in our time. Don't worry about it. There's not going to be a war. But Hitler had promised Chamberlain, he said, you know what? I'm not going to make any more demands. This is it. We're done. The demands are finished. I got what I wanted, etc., etc. However, Churchill, who's going to be the new prime minister later when the war starts, Churchill says, no, that's not going to happen, right? Churchill's like, Hitler's going to demand more, and he's going to demand more, and he's going to demand more until he's, satisfied. And it's going to cause problems. So he's giving this warning to Chamberlain that if they don't stop him and giving in to Hitler, his demands are going to grow astronomically. By that spring of 1939, Hitler has already invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia and taken it over. So obviously from that action, Hitler is showing that he has no intentions of stopping, that he's going to make more demands on what he wants, right? All right, here's number 10. The Western states reacted to this invasion, and they saw the Nazis and Hitler as a threat now. They're like, okay, he's obviously not stopping. He's now invaded Slovakia and made that a puppet state, so it's under, their control. And they noticed that his promises were not kept, right? That his promises are worthless. So now they see them as a threat, and now Hitler, of course, is demanding that the Polish port of Danzig be under German leadership, right? Because he wants it, because it's a industrial port. Great Britain sees this, and now they're saying, okay, well, this is dangerous. So Great Britain is an ally of Poland. So Great Britain says to Poland, hey, if Germany ever tries something, we got your back. We are going to defend you and protect you in case of any war, okay? And that's exactly what happens, but we'll get to that in a minute. On the other hand, Hitler, he knows that that he does not want the Soviet Union to align with France and Great Britain, right? But he believes that he can continue to meet his demands because the French and British are not going to do anything, right? So he makes this strategy, and he figures that he can make an alliance with the Soviet Union, even though he's anti-communist, right? So this is where he signs, him and the Soviet Union, Stalin and Hitler, signs a Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. And that publicly, in the public eye, says, hey, Germany and the Soviet Union will never attack each other if a war starts. They're going to remain neutral each other. They're not going to attack each other. This was a shock around the world because everybody in politics knew that Hitler was anti-communist, right? So they're wondering, okay, well, what's going on here? Secretly, Hitler and Stalin had been plotting to divide Poland into, or Eastern Europe, into spheres of influence so that they have control over those areas, right? So that was on the back burner, okay, that they secretly were going to do that. Of course, the public didn't know that, right? So that's number 11 and 12. Here's number 13. What event made Great Britain and France declare war on Germany? That's when Germany invaded Poland. They invaded Western Poland, of course, because Britain is an ally of Poland and France is an ally of Poland. They declared war on Germany, and that is exactly what starts, or the spark that causes World War II. This is the immediate cause of World War II. And that happened in 1939. All right, here's 14. So that was on the European side. This is on the Asian side, okay? On the Asian side, Japan is seeking to boost their influence, right? They want more power. They want more authority. And they decide to take over Manchuria because it has all of the resources that they need in order to build up themselves militaristically as a superpower. So that's what they do. They take over Manchuria, okay? And now they have their eyes set on the inner part of Mongolia, which is right here in Mongolia, and also parts of northern China, all right? So that's what happens. This is number 15. This is Hirohito of Japan. He is seen now more as a figurehead because his army and government leaders that were militants now gain control of the politics and decision making for Japan, right? So he is no longer have the authority per se. It's now in the hands of the armed forces and militants that take over, all right? This is 16 and 17. Chiang Kai-shek was once the leader of China, okay? However, at this point, he was concerned because the growing spread of communism was happening. And he's trying to avoid a conflict with Japan, but he also has to deal with Chinese communists spreading communism in China. When there's issues that break out with the Japanese troops in China, he decides to divert his attention from the communist Chinese in his country and focuses a united front defending themselves against Japan. However, that was a defeat. They were defeated. As you see here in the rape of Nanjing, the Japanese army destroyed the city, massacred more than 100,000 civilians and prisoners of war. So now Japan has control over these major ports, such as Nanjing and other major ports in Hong Kong. Okay, and thus ends this lesson. I'll go ahead and complete the answers on the back. Look carefully on that map. If you have any questions, please let me know in class, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.